Yeah.
Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, bringing you some of the best college football news, predictions, and analysis. It is very difficult to defeat the same team twice in a single season, but that is the tall task that the Oklahoma Sooners will face this Saturday as they take on the 7th-ranked Baylor Bears in the Big 12 championship game, a game that has major playoff implications for both programs. Depending on what happens in the Pac-12 championship on Friday night, the winner of this game could find themselves in as the 4th team in the college football playoff. It is by far one of the biggest games of this conference championship weekend, and we are here to break down everything you need to know for this top 10 showdown and to see whether the Bears or the Sooners can find themselves in to the college football playoff. As we all know, just a few weeks ago, Baylor and Oklahoma met in one of the most thrilling games of this college football season, Baylor leading the game at one point 28-3 before allowing Oklahoma to battle all the way back and win 34-31 in Waco. It was an unbelievable comeback. It was an unbelievable game and just a stunning win for the Sooners and a stunning loss for Baylor. With a game like this, Oklahoma probably should not have beaten Baylor the first time. So you look at this game and you question, can they do it again? Can they do it again at a neutral site against a Baylor team that is definitely going to be hungry for revenge after losing on their home turf in a game, once again, they probably should not have lost? When you look at the history of these two programs, it's really fascinating to see the recent trends of both of them. You look at Baylor, who's only defeated Oklahoma 3 times in the series. Oklahoma leads the series 26-3 over the Bears. Those 3 wins for Baylor came between 2011 and 2014. Of course, that was at the peak of the Art Briles era, the peak of one of the best offenses in all of college football, when the Bears were at the time college football playoff contenders and national championship contenders during the BCS era. But those 3 wins, as we mentioned, were the only wins in this series. Then things fell apart for Baylor shortly after 2014. They went 1-11 in Matt Rhule's first year, way back in 2017. Now, just 2 years later, they are 11-1, playing for a Big 12 title and a potential college football playoff spot. It's amazing how quickly things can turn. For Oklahoma, since their last loss to Baylor, they have won 4 straight over the Bears and have won the past 4 Big 12 titles. They've won the past 4 Big 12 titles since their last loss to Baylor. So once again, 2 programs that at one point were going in opposite directions but now are back to the dominance that they had earlier in this decade. We take a look at the offensive side of the ball, and you first off look at Baylor and how balanced they are offensively. They're averaging 36.2 points per game, 259 passing yards per game, and 186.2 rushing yards per game. And that's the number you need to circle here. You need to circle the amount of rushing yards that Baylor can produce going up against a weaker Oklahoma run defense, something that we will address later on. But Baylor, one of the more balanced teams in the country, one of the more balanced teams in the Big 12, and their leader is Charlie Brewer, who has been one of the better quarterbacks in the Big 12 this season. Keep in mind, he had 4 total touchdowns in that first half against Oklahoma a few weeks ago. He had 2 running touchdowns, 2 throwing touchdowns, and was actually the leading rusher for the Bears by the end of the night. So he had a fantastic start before the Oklahoma defense stepped up and really shut them down. That's why balance is going to be so key in this game. Brewer is an experienced quarterback. He's a solid quarterback. But they're going to have to find balance early and often if they want to win this game against Oklahoma once again at a neutral site. When you look at Oklahoma's offense, it's clear as day that they own the edge there. You can't sit here and tell me that Oklahoma has a worse offense than Baylor, that Baylor has a better offense than Oklahoma, because that's simply not true. Oklahoma, as we all know, led by a Heisman candidate quarterback in Jalen Hurts, one of the best quarterbacks in the country this season statistically. He's leading an offense that averages 44.3 points per game, and Hurts is responsible for 49 total touchdowns. 49 total touchdowns. Over 1,200 yards rushing this season. Over 3,300 passing yards this season. His stats are unbelievable, and if it weren't for a guy named Joe Burrow down in Death Valley, he would be the front runner to win the Heisman right now. Keep in mind also, when you look at Oklahoma's offense as a whole, you've got Jalen Hurts, who's the leader of this team, the main reason Oklahoma is thriving so well right now. But he's going to have his elite wide receiver, CeeDee Lamb, back for this game in the Big 12 Championship. CeeDee Lamb did not play in the first meeting this season between the Bears and the Sooners. Lamb's averaging 20.7 yards per catch. He has 1,035 yards this season and 14 touchdowns. That's nearly half the touchdowns that Jalen Hurts has thrown for this season. So he's putting up some monster numbers, and that's just another headache that this Baylor defense, and another factor that this Baylor defense is going to have to factor in and try to shut down from this elite Oklahoma offense that's averaging over 500 yards per game. When you look at defense, though, that's where Baylor actually owns the edge. So these teams really match up well against one another, and that became evident in that win down in Waco earlier this month for Oklahoma. That was a game that, even though Baylor was dominating early on 28-3, by the end of the game you could see why these two teams were ranked where they were, why these two teams were at the top of the Big 12 standings, and how well they truly did match up with one another. But Baylor defensively owns the edge, only allowing 18.4 points per game. They've allowed just 16 points per game in their past two. That's 10 points to Texas, 6 points to Kansas. And while many will say it's just Kansas, that's still a team that dropped 48 on Texas. That's still a team that won a couple, or at least one Big 12 game this season under Les Miles. That's still a team that dropped, I believe it was 31 on Iowa State. A team that Oklahoma allowed to score 41 on in Norman. So the fact that Baylor's defense did so well against the Jayhawks and also forced 6 turnovers in that game, to me, says something. And the way that they played in those final 2 games following the devastating loss to Oklahoma showed me that Baylor is mentally tough. That game is in the back of their minds now. They are not worried about it. It is out of their head, and they are ready and anxious to get some revenge. They did a fairly good job of containing Jalen Hurts early in that game down in Waco. Can they do it again? Last time they met each other, they forced 3 turnovers from the Sooners, all because of Jalen Hurts. An interception from Hurts and then 2 fumbles, one down near the goal line. Obviously didn't even end up mattering as Oklahoma ended up winning this game, but still. Baylor was able to force turnovers. They were able to create stops. They were able to slow down that offense early and often. The key, though, one of those stats, we said to circle those rushing yards for Baylor. The key number that I want you to circle here for Baylor's defense is that they're allowing over 208 passing yards per game across the season. They're going up against the Oklahoma offense that's averaging 304.3 passing yards per game. So once again, as it is the case every time we look at these stats, something's got to give. Is Oklahoma going to continue to thrive against this Baylor passing defense that has probably been their weakness this season? Or will Baylor finally step up and shut down the pass? Make it difficult for Oklahoma to throw. Make it difficult for Jalen Hurts to get any offensive production. That's the key you need to see here. And obviously the key for Baylor is to shut down Jalen Hurts. For Oklahoma, their defense, even though we said Baylor has the edge, their defense was the reason and was the key play that won it for them down in Waco back in November. They made that clutch interception as Baylor was driving for a chance to either tie it or win it at the end of regulation. They had that clutch interception there. They're only allowing 24.7 points per game. That is not a bad mark. But as has been the case in recent years when people are talking about Oklahoma as being a playoff contender, they immediately look to their defense. We know the offense is good. We knew it was good with Baker Mayfield. We knew it was good with Kyler Murray. We know it's good with Jalen Hurts. But what about their defense? It was kind of weak last year. It was weak a few years ago. Now, is there a cause of concern because of the fact they allowed a decent amount of points to Texas, to Iowa State, and nearly lost to TCU at home? But you look at this, they're allowing 140.2 rushing yards per game, and you look at that weakness that we were talking about, that's going to be their weakness here. 140.2 rushing yards per game against a Baylor offense averaging 186.2 rushing yards per game. Once again, something's got to give. But Baylor did not get much rushing going against Oklahoma first time around. Keep in mind, Brewer was the leading rusher, and he only had 65 yards. But that mobility for Charlie Brewer could play a difference maker in this. We know Jalen Hurts is going to take off and run plenty in this game. But that RPO that Baylor could be able to implement in this game. Oklahoma having to decide, is he going to throw? Is he going to run? Is he going to hand it off? What's going to happen with Charlie Brewer in the back? A guy that I think is very underrated, could spell an issue for an Oklahoma defense that certainly is, in my opinion, a little bit weaker than Baylor's defense. So you look at that across the board. You look at the stats. You look at offense. You look at defense. You look at history. You look at what happened in the first meeting, and that's what everybody's going to point to. When you watch this game on Saturday morning, that's going to be the talk of the day, is look at what happened last time these two teams met. Baylor was up 28-3, and they blew it. They lost 34-31. Yet here they are still in a position that if they win this game, and if Utah loses to Oregon, they will be in the college football playoff. That's just fact of the matter. And also, of course, if LSU defeats Georgia in the SEC championship. So despite that loss to Baylor, or despite that loss to Oklahoma, Baylor is still in a prime position to make the Final Four 2 years removed from a 1-11 season. The key for Baylor in this game, believe it or not, once again, we said there's going to be a lot of talk about what happened last time. My key right here is do exactly what you did last time, except this time finish the job. Do exactly what you did. But this time, just finish. Just finish. You watched the game a couple weeks ago down in Waco. Baylor got off to a quick start. They were down 3-0, allowed Oklahoma to go down there, kick a field goal, no big deal. They got out to a quick start. They were up 14-3 at the end of the first quarter. They were up 28-3 at one point. Their offense was clicking on all cylinders. Denzel Mims was playing off the charts. Charlie Brewer was on fire, both through the air and on the ground. The defense was forcing turnovers. They were playing fast. They were playing furious. They were forcing turnovers. They were stopping Jalen Hurts. And then everything kind of fell apart in that second half. Baylor committed a few turnovers. They allowed Jalen Hurts to come to life. Hurts actually had over 400 total yards against the Bears the last time they met. So Baylor has to do exactly what they did last time and just do a little bit better of a job containing Jalen Hurts and then just finishing the job. It's not going to be a blowout from either side here, guys. Oklahoma's not going to blow them out. Baylor's not going to blow them out. I expect it to be a very close game, much like it was back in November. But if Baylor can just capitalize on the turnovers, if they can shut down Jalen Hurts just a little bit more than they did last time, they will win this game. For Oklahoma, the first thing they've got to do is don't do what they did last time early on. Do not start playing from behind. But also, if Oklahoma is the one to get ahead, don't let up. Obviously, in a weekend where Oklahoma, if they win, could be, put head-to-head against Utah as who's going to get that fourth spot, a dominant win over Baylor would be huge. A dominant blowout win over a top 10 opponent could go a long way in maybe sending Oklahoma over Utah for that fourth spot, once again assuming Georgia does fall to LSU. So don't start playing from behind. Don't get down early like they did last time, 28-3, because I can guarantee you Baylor will not let up and will not blow it. But don't let up yourselves like you did against TCU, where they were up 21-0 and barely escaped 28-24 had it not been, once again, for a clutch interception like they did against Baylor and a very questionable 3rd-and-1 first down that the referees granted the Sooners. So do not do that. And then secondly, take care of the football. Oklahoma has done a very poor job of holding on to the football this year. They've had 16 turnovers lost this year, a lot of them coming from Jalen Hurts. I believe he's thrown 6 interceptions this year, handful of fumbles, and that's what you're going to get when you've got a dual-threat quarterback. That's what you're going to get when you've got a guy that can run. Get hit hard, you're going to fumble. Reaching for the goal line, you're going to fumble. It does happen. But Oklahoma is -5 in turnover margin this season. That is not good. That is not good. That means they've lost 5 more turnovers than they have gained. So they've got to be able to take care of the football in this one because they cannot afford to give Baylor any extra opportunities, any extra signs of life, any opportunities to get up 28-3 or big again, because like I said, if that's the case, Baylor will in fact win this game. Secure the ball, but make sure you steal it from Baylor. That's going to be the key for Oklahoma. So once again, a game like this, a top 10 showdown, number 6 versus number 7, emotions are going to be high, not just because of the playoff implications, but because of what happened just a few weeks ago. So what is going to happen down in Arlington this Saturday? It's going to be close. It's going to be close. Vegas is disrespecting Baylor yet again. They were 10-point underdogs at home back in November. They're 10-point underdogs, or 9, depending on where you look. 9 or 10-point underdogs once again, this time at a neutral site. I do not know why. because Baylor is a much better team than that. They showed that against Oklahoma, even though they lost, and they've shown that the past 2 weeks where they have dominated Texas and Kansas. While they may not be elite, they are still decent opponents that Baylor crushed. But as we mentioned, it is very hard to beat the same team twice. Very, very difficult. But Oklahoma is the team that can do just that. I've seen them do it before, and I think they're going to do it again. Another thing that could play a huge role in here, kind of like we mentioned with the SEC championship, Oklahoma's been here before. Maybe Jalen Hurts has not been here before with Oklahoma, but he has been in an SEC championship game. Many of these Oklahoma players played in the Big 12 championship game last year that they won over Texas that sent them to the college football playoff. They have been in this environment before while Baylor has not. Experience on a big game stage could come into play here in this game. Could be an extra edge that Oklahoma has more so than Baylor, who once again 2 years removed from a 1-11 season and is going to be playing under the big lights on a major stage for the first time under Matt Rule and for the first time in a very, very long time. Jalen Hurts takes a better care of the football this year. Oklahoma has no more than 2 turnovers in this game. Wouldn't be surprised if they play a very clean game. It's close, but Lincoln Riley and the Sooners pull this one out and then await their fate to see if the committee awards them the last spot in the college football playoff come Selection Sunday. So guys, thank you for watching us here on YouTube. Make sure to like this video and check out everything we have for you in the description below. Check out that exclusive college football content and those exclusive college football offers that you will not receive anywhere else. And once again, thank you for watching. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll see you next time on the Gridiron Expert.